I stared at the numbers on my phone for what felt like forever. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. I checked the numbers again. Then a third time. They matched. I had just won $100 million. For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. I was sitting alone in my car outside a grocery store parking lot, trying to understand what had just happened. My entire life had changed in a single moment. The first person I wanted to tell was my husband, Ethan. I thought about all the years we had struggled together. The bills that never seemed to end. The vacations we couldn't afford. The dreams we kept putting off because there was never enough money. Now all of that was over. I laughed, cried, and wiped tears from my face. I imagined Ethan's reaction when I told him. I could already see him pulling me into a hug and telling me everything would finally be okay. I decided not to call him. This news was too big for a phone call. I wanted to see his face when I told him. I wanted to surprise him. I stopped at a nearby store and bought a bottle of champagne. My heart was racing the entire time. Every person I passed seemed completely normal while my world had been turned upside down. As I drove toward Ethan's office, I kept thinking about our future. We could buy a home we truly loved. We could travel. We could stop worrying about money every month. The closer I got to his office, the more excited I became. When I arrived, I grabbed the champagne and hurried inside. The receptionist smiled and told me Ethan was still in the building. I thanked her and headed toward the hallway that led to the executive offices. Then I heard something. Laughter. A woman's laughter. I slowed my steps. For some reason, a strange feeling settled in my stomach. I followed the sound, unaware that the next few minutes would destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. As I stood in that hallway, waiting to understand what I had just heard, memories from the last 12 years rushed through my mind. Ethan and I had built our life from almost nothing. When we first got married, we lived in a small apartment with old furniture and constant financial stress. Things were never easy, but I believed we were a team. Whenever money was tight, I found a way to help. There were times when I worked extra shifts and picked up side jobs just to keep us moving forward. I didn't complain because I thought we were working toward the same future. Ethan always had big goals. He wanted promotions, better positions, and eventually a leadership role at his company. I supported every dream he had. If he needed more time at work, I adjusted my schedule. If he needed encouragement, I gave it. People often told us how lucky we were. At family gatherings, friends would joke that Ethan and I were the couple everyone wanted to be. We rarely argued in public. We always appeared united. Hearing those comments made me proud. Looking back, there were small things that probably should have caught my attention. Sometimes Ethan would come home much later than expected. Other times he seemed distracted during conversations. A few special occasions were canceled because of sudden work emergencies. But I never questioned him. Whenever I asked, he always had an explanation. A meeting ran late. A client needed help. A project deadline was approaching. His answers sounded reasonable, and I trusted him completely. Trust had never been difficult for me. Ethan was my husband. I believed he was working hard for us and for the life we wanted together. I defended him whenever others suggested he spent too much time at work. I told everyone he was dedicated and responsible. The truth was simple. I loved him, and I believed in him. Standing there now, I realized how easily trust can make someone ignore the things they don't want to see. For years, I had been looking at my marriage through the eyes of love. I was about to discover what it looked like through the eyes of reality. The laughter grew louder as I moved closer to the conference room. At first, I thought maybe Ethan was meeting with coworkers. There was nothing unusual about that. But something about the sound made me stop. The door wasn't completely closed. Through the glass wall beside it, I could see inside. What I saw froze me in place. Ethan was standing next to a woman with his arm around her waist. Not a friendly hug. Not a casual workplace moment. The kind of embrace that only exists between two people involved with each other. The woman looked comfortable in his arms, as if this was something they did all the time. I immediately recognized her. Vanessa Brooks. I had met her once at a company event months earlier. Ethan had introduced her as a co-worker. Nothing more. My heart started pounding. I wanted to believe there was another explanation, but then Vanessa leaned closer and kissed him. Ethan kissed her back. In that moment, every excuse I could have made disappeared. I stood there completely still, unable to move. Then I heard Ethan speak. "We won't have to hide this forever," he said. Vanessa smiled. "What about Megan?" Ethan laughed. A laugh I had heard thousands of times before. Only this time it sounded different. "She'll never figure it out," he said. "She's too trusting." The words hit harder than anything else. Not because he was cheating, because he was making fun of the trust one had given him. Vanessa asked how much longer they would have to wait. Ethan told her he was working on a plan, and that soon they could finally focus on their future together. Their future, not ours. The bottle of champagne slipped from my fingers and hit the floor behind me. The sound echoed through the hallway. For a second, panic rushed through me. I turned and walked away as quickly as I could before either of them came out to investigate. By the time I reached my car, tears were running down my face. The lottery ticket was still in my hand. Just hours earlier, I thought it would change my life for the better. Now I could barely look at it. Everything I believed about my marriage had fallen apart in a matter of minutes. That night, I acted as if nothing had happened. When Ethan came home, he behaved normally. He asked about my day, ate dinner, and talked about work. Watching him lie so easily was almost harder than discovering the affair itself. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed answers first. Over the next few days, I paid closer attention to everything. His schedule, his phone calls, his excuses. The more I looked, the more pieces started falling into place. Soon, I realized this wasn't a recent mistake. It had been going on for years. I found evidence showing that Ethan and Vanessa had been seeing each other for nearly 3 years. They had taken trips together, attended events, and spent countless hours meeting outside of work. The relationship wasn't a secret between them. It was a secret from me. What hurt even more was learning that Vanessa knew exactly who I was. She knew Ethan was married. She knew we had built a life together. None of it mattered to her. In messages I discovered, she constantly pressured Ethan to leave me. She talked about the future they would have once I was out of the picture. She spoke as if our marriage was nothing more than an obstacle standing in her way. Then I uncovered something else. Something that made the situation even worse. Ethan had been moving money without telling me. Small amounts at first. Then larger amounts. There were accounts I had never heard of and transactions he had carefully hidden. The money wasn't disappearing by accident. It was being moved intentionally. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the records for hours. Every sacrifice I had made suddenly felt meaningless. The overtime shifts. The missed opportunities. The years spent believing we were building something together. While I was protecting our future, Ethan was secretly creating one that didn't include me. For several days, I cried whenever I was alone. But eventually something changed. The sadness was still there, but it wasn't the only thing I felt anymore. I was angry. Not reckless anger. Not the kind that causes someone to make mistakes. A calm, focused anger. And for the first time since discovering the truth, I stopped thinking about what Ethan had done. I started thinking about what I was going to do next. After thinking carefully about everything, I made one important decision. I would tell no one about the lottery. Not my family. Not my friends. And definitely not Ethan. The winning ticket became my secret. At first, keeping such a huge secret felt strange. There were moments when I wanted to tell someone. The news was life-changing, and I was carrying it alone. But I knew the truth. The moment Ethan learned about the money, everything would change. I needed time to protect myself before that happened. Instead of acting emotionally, I started acting carefully. I contacted an attorney with experience in financial matters. During our first meeting, I explained my situation and everything I had discovered about my marriage. The attorney listened patiently and advised me not to make any sudden moves. Next, I met with financial advisors. They helped me understand how to secure the lottery winnings and protect my assets. Every step was handled quietly and professionally. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my own future. Then I hired a private investigator. Within weeks, the investigator provided information that confirmed many of my suspicions. More evidence of Ethan's relationship with Vanessa surfaced. Their meetings, trips, and communications created a clear picture of what had been happening behind my back. The investigator also helped document financial activity connected to Ethan's hidden accounts. Everything was organized carefully. Every record, every transaction, every piece of evidence. Meanwhile, Ethan continued living as though nothing had changed. He left for work each morning, came home each evening, and carried on with his usual routine. What he didn't realize was that I was no longer the woman he thought he knew. I wasn't blindly trusting him anymore. I wasn't waiting for explanations. I wasn't depending on him to make decisions. For the first time in a very long time, Every choice I made was for my own benefit. The strange part was that Ethan's greatest mistake wasn't the affair. It wasn't the hidden money. It was his confidence. He believed I knew nothing. He believed he was still in control. And as long as he continued believing that, I had the advantage. So I stayed quiet, remained patient, and continued preparing for what would come next. As the weeks passed, I learned more about Ethan than I had during our entire marriage. The investigator continued gathering information, and each report revealed another side of the man I thought I knew. One afternoon, I reviewed notes from a meeting Ethan had with Vanessa at a restaurant across town. The conversation was eye-opening. They weren't simply talking about their relationship anymore. They were planning their future together. According to the report, Vanessa wanted Ethan to stop delaying things and finally end our marriage. She was tired of waiting and wanted a clear timeline. What shocked me most was Ethan's confidence. He spoke as if everything was already decided. He told Vanessa that when the divorce happened, I would walk away with very little. He claimed I depended on him financially and wouldn't know how to handle life on my own. Reading those words felt almost unreal. For years, I had supported our household in countless ways. Yet Ethan had convinced himself that I was weak and incapable. The arrogance was unbelievable. Vanessa seemed just as confident. She talked openly about vacations they would take, homes they might buy, and opportunities that would become available once I was no longer part of Ethan's life. The two of them acted as though the future belonged to them. Neither one questioned whether their plans could fail. Neither one imagined I might already know the truth. And neither one had any idea about the money sitting safely beyond Ethan's reach. That secret changed everything. While they dreamed about wealth and success, they were completely unaware that I possessed more financial security than they could imagine. The irony wasn't lost on me. The people who spent years lying and manipulating others believed they were the smartest people in the room. In reality, they were making plans based on false assumptions. Every conversation they had revealed the same thing. Greed. Not love. Not loyalty. Not respect. Just greed. The more I learned, the calmer I became. The sadness that once controlled my thoughts had started fading. In its place came patience. I no longer felt the need to rush. Ethan and Vanessa were busy building fantasies about the future. What they didn't understand was that the future they expected was never going to happen. And with every passing day, they moved one step closer to discovering that truth. As the weeks passed, I learned more about Ethan than I had during our entire marriage. The investigator continued gathering information, and each report revealed another side of the man I thought I knew. One afternoon, I reviewed notes from a meeting Ethan had with Vanessa at a restaurant across town. The conversation was eye-opening. They weren't simply talking about their relationship anymore. They were planning their future together. According to the report, Vanessa wanted Ethan to stop delaying things and finally end our marriage. She was tired of waiting and wanted a clear timeline. What shocked me most was Ethan's confidence. He spoke as if everything was already decided. He told Vanessa that when the divorce happened, I would walk away with very little. He claimed I depended on him financially and wouldn't know how to handle life on my own. Reading those words felt almost unreal. For years, I had supported our household in countless ways. Yet Ethan had convinced himself that I was weak and incapable. The arrogance was unbelievable. Vanessa seemed just as confident. She talked openly about vacations they would take, homes they might buy, and opportunities that would become available once I was no longer part of Ethan's life. The two of them acted as though the future belonged to them. Neither one questioned whether their plans could fail. Neither one imagined I might already know the truth. And neither one had any idea about the money sitting safely beyond Ethan's reach. That secret changed everything. While they dreamed about wealth and success, they were completely unaware that I possessed more financial security than they could imagine. The irony wasn't lost on me. The people who spent years lying and manipulating others believed they were the smartest people in the room. In reality, they were making plans based on false assumptions. Every conversation they had revealed the same thing. Greed. Not love. Not loyalty. Not respect. Just greed. The more I learned, the calmer I became. The sadness that once controlled my thoughts had started fading. In its place came patience. I no longer felt the need to rush. Ethan and Vanessa were busy building fantasies about the future. What they didn't understand was that the future they expected was never going to happen. And with every passing day, they moved one step closer to discovering that truth. After finishing my speech, I thanked everyone again for coming. Then I told the guests that I had prepared a short slideshow to celebrate the years Ethan and I had spent together. The lights dimmed, and the screen at the front of the room came to life. At first, everything looked normal. Photos from vacations, family gatherings, holiday celebrations. The room filled with smiles as people watched the memories pass by. Ethan seemed completely comfortable. Then the slideshow changed. The next image showed Ethan and Vanessa together outside a hotel. The smiles in the room disappeared instantly. A few people looked confused. Others turned toward Ethan. Before anyone could react, another image appeared. Then another. And another. Photographs from different dates and locations filled the screen. The evidence was impossible to ignore. The room became completely silent. I watched as Ethan's face lost all color. The slideshow continued. Bank records appeared. Documents showing hidden transfers followed. Messages between Ethan and Vanessa were displayed next. Several guests gasped as they read the conversations. Every lie. Every secret. Every betrayal. It was all there. Ethan suddenly stood up. "Megan, please," he said. "This isn't what it looks like." But nobody believed him. Not anymore. The evidence spoke for itself. Some family members looked shocked. Others looked angry. A few couldn't even look at Ethan. As the final document disappeared from the screen, I picked up a folder from the table beside me. Everyone's attention shifted toward me. I calmly explained that I had spent weeks gathering information and protecting myself legally. Then I revealed something nobody in the room expected. A few weeks earlier, I had won $100 million. The reaction was immediate. Several people stared at me in disbelief. Others thought they had heard me wrong. I explained that the money was secure and legally protected. Every dollar. Ethan looked frozen. For a moment, he couldn't say anything. Then the realization hit him. The expression on his face said everything. He understood exactly what he had lost. Not just the money. Not just the future he imagined. He had betrayed the one person who had truly loved him and stood beside him through everything. And now there was nothing he could do to change it. The room remained silent as Ethan sat back down, knowing his entire life had just fallen apart in front of everyone. The weeks after the anniversary dinner moved much faster than I expected. Once the truth was out, there was no reason to delay anything. The legal process began almost immediately. Ethan hired attorneys and tried to defend himself, but the evidence was already documented and organized. Every attempt to explain his actions only created more problems for him. The hidden accounts became a serious issue. The financial records raised questions he could not answer. His dishonesty during the marriage made his position much weaker than he had expected. For years, Ethan believed he controlled the situation. Now he was discovering the consequences of his choices. Things became even worse when Vanessa finally understood the reality of his circumstances. The future Ethan had promised her was no longer possible. The money she assumed would be available was completely beyond his reach. Their relationship began falling apart almost immediately. Arguments replaced the excitement they once shared. Within a short time, Vanessa walked away. Just like that, the relationship Ethan had sacrificed everything for was gone. At the same time, many people in his life started seeing him differently. Family members who once respected him became distant. Friends stopped defending him. Even some professional relationships suffered after details of his behavior became known. The image he had carefully built over the years slowly disappeared. While Ethan's world was shrinking, mine was expanding. I moved into a beautiful new home that felt peaceful from the moment I walked through the front door. For the first time in years, every decision belonged to me. I also began supporting organizations that helped families, students, and people facing difficult circumstances. Helping others brought me a sense of purpose that money alone could never provide. The rest of the lottery winnings were invested carefully with long-term plans in mind. My future felt secure. More importantly, it felt honest. People often imagine revenge as shouting, fighting, or trying to destroy someone. That wasn't what happened. I didn't need to hurt Ethan. I didn't need to punish him. He had already done that himself. Every lie, every betrayal, every selfish decision, they all returned to him eventually. And as I watched my new life take shape, I realized something important. The greatest victory wasn't seeing Ethan lose. It was finally being free. A year passed faster than I expected. When I looked back at the woman I had been 12 months earlier, she felt like a different person. The pain that once followed me every day was gone. The anger had faded. The questions that used to keep me awake at night no longer mattered. In their place, I found something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. My life no longer revolved around someone else's decisions or promises. I woke up each morning knowing that my future belonged to me. The lottery winnings had certainly opened doors, but money wasn't the biggest change in my life. Freedom was. Freedom from lies. Freedom from disappointment. Freedom from constantly trusting someone who didn't deserve it. One afternoon, I received an unexpected message. Ethan wanted to meet. At first, I considered ignoring it. There was nothing left to discuss. But after thinking about it, I agreed to a short meeting at a quiet coffee shop. When I arrived, Ethan was already there. He looked older than I remembered. Not because of time, but because of regret. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Then he finally apologized. Not with excuses. Not with explanations. Just an apology. He admitted that he had taken my loyalty for granted. He said he never expected to lose the life we had built together. He confessed that he spent years assuming I would always be there no matter what choices he made. Now he understood how wrong he had been. I listened quietly. When he finished speaking, I thanked him for being honest. And I meant it. Holding on to bitterness would not help either of us. But forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I could accept his apology without giving him another chance. So that is exactly what I did. I wished him well and stood up to leave. As I walked toward the door, I felt no sadness, no anger, no doubt, only certainty. That chapter of my life was over. Outside, the sun was shining, and the future felt brighter than ever. I got into my car and drove away without looking back. Some endings feel like losses. This one felt like a beginning, and for the first time in many years, I was excited to see what came next.